What's happening, y'all? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now, where we're bringing the village to the brothers. Every couple of weeks, you can look forward to a quick inspirational message or a thought-provoking guest with knowledge and wisdom, all geared towards helping you be the best father that you can be. We're bringing the village to you. Now it's your turn to do something with what you learned. All right, y'all. Let's go. Please enjoy part 1 of my conversation with Fathers Incorporated founder and creator Kenneth Braswell. This is part 1 of our discussion. Y'all enjoy. What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You, and we're here with another episode of Black Fathers Now. Dig this. We have a brother who is really impacting the world across the world. When you say impacting the world, sometimes you just say impacting the world, but it's very, isolated. But no, this brother's really making impact around the world. And he's doing so through an organization that he's the founder and current CEO of, and that's Fathers Incorporated. And I'm speaking about none other than my man, Kenneth Braswell. Kenneth leads Fathers Incorporated, which is a nationally and internationally recognized nonprofit that really serves the needs of fathers. But on top of that, the brother's a father of 5, and he's married to his queen, and they're about to celebrate their 10th wedding anniversary, correct?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so, fellas and ladies listening too, because y'all like to tune in to what we're talking about, let's welcome my man, the creator, the CEO, and the founder of Fathers Incorporated, Kenneth Braswell. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man, Mike. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be on here with you. Like I told you before, I follow you. I pay attention to what's going on around my space, and you're doing the damn thing, as we would say on the block, right? Keep doing your thing and keep being great.
I appreciate that, man. And speaking of greatness, we're going to get into your story. But before we get into your story, I always like to start with shout outs because, the tagline of Black Fathers Now is bringing the village to the brothers. And the reality is, who are we without our village? So before we get started, I think it's super important for us to give a shout out to those that allow us to be who we are. So, brother, man, give a shout out to some of your village, man.
First and foremost, to my God, who holds me down, who keeps me focused on my calling to speak to the hearts of men, who resides inside of me, orders my steps, maintains my focus, chastises me when I'm not going down the right path, straightens me out, and rewards me when I'm doing the right thing and when I'm following in full faith and full obedience. And so he would definitely be number one. Second is my rib, my wife, my queen, who without her, you and I would be having a different conversation right now. You asked me before we came on that I have any areas I didn't want to go through and talk about in my life. Without her, I probably would have more of those things we couldn't talk about, With her, I'm a transparent glass, man. I'm all the way through. She's been there from when I was Kenny from the block, and now she's with me where I'm Kenny on the board in the boardroom.
Woo!
And so she is, she's everything. She means everything to me. And then my 5 children, from KJ, my youngest son, Nzinga, Amber, Tiara, and Monica, my 2 grandchildren, Max and Nevaeh, and my staff and my board. And my accountability circle, man, the brothers that just kind of hold me down and we're grinding in this work together, man. We look out for each other. We have a broader interest in each other beyond our personal relationships. We want to see each other win, man. That's why I like what you do, bro. I like seeing brothers win. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if it looks like what I'm doing. I don't care if it sounds like what I'm doing. All I got to ask at the end of the day is the brother winning. That's all I want to know. If he's winning, leave me alone and leave him alone. And you go back to doing whatever you want to do. When you feel like winning, come join us. If you don't feel like winning, stay over there and keep losing. Because if you ain't with us, you ain't with us.
Dude, you said 2 things that really stuck out to me, man. You mentioned one thing. You said a broader interest than just what's on the surface. So meaning when you have people around you that want more for you, then sometimes you want for yourself. right? You're looking at them win. And I say this to a lot of brothers that I come into contact with, I think it's incumbent upon me to find ways to help ensure that the right people win. So it's not that folks haven't won in the past. I'm just a firm believer that the right people have not won, because when the right people win, that's when we all win. That's when it goes to the Tupac line when it says, ain't no fun if the homies can't have none. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he was referencing something else, but we'll take it, flip it, screw it, use it in our frame of reference. It's the whole concept of that person then creates opportunities for others. And so I really groove with that whole concept of building relationships that are much deeper than the surface and connecting yourself with people who really have a vested interest in you winning and you winning big, because they realize that when you win, we all win.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm going to even add into that, man, because sometimes folks, they look at this whole concept of being in similar spaces and doing similar things in a spirit of competition, right? And I think that even with what you're going on, Black Fathers Now is what I've been doing, and you created Fathers Incorporated, but then there are other entities out there that are within the fatherhood space. To be completely honest, we have to find ways to leverage each other so the rising tide lifts all boats. It's not a situation in which we're competing. And I don't know about you, but I've actually had brothers before like reach out to me in my DM or inbox if they're doing something in the fatherhood space. And really low key, what they're doing is asking for permission to step into the space. And before they step, I always tell them like, dude, no, go. We need you. How can I help push you forward? And because it's a little trepidation because they think they're stepping on toes. I'm like, nah, bro, I'll celebrate you. That's what it's all about, man.
Listen, there's only two real ways in the English language to speak about fathers, either using the word father or using the word dad. After that, you got to come up with some combination of words that distinguish what people call you, but it doesn't distinguish who you are, right? Call me Fathers Incorporated all day long. That doesn't necessarily tell you who I am, right? Because you got a name of your organization that's close to fathers or close to dad. Don't really tell me nothing about you. I know you through your works, right? And so your works define who your name is. That's why what our mama and daddy called us, right? That's what they say. What's his name say in Coming to Your Mirror? Mama called him Clay.
That's it. Mama called him Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay.
Right? And he said, my name is no longer Cassius Clay. I'm now Muhammad Ali, right? And I'm the greatest. And people's like, what? He's like, no, I'm the greatest. And then he had to back it up. And no one could dispute it. So you and I, no matter what we call ourselves, as long as we stand behind it and continue to be that, who has the authority to take that from us? Nobody. That's just a name on a piece of paper. Listen, everybody knows the difference between, Fathers Now and Fathers Incorporated, and Fathers and Fatherhood Initiative. And everybody knows that they're all kind of doing the same level of work. Again, we need to be a pride in the jungle, not just a lion in the jungle. We need to be out here, like, protecting for our families, providing for our village, and being the last one to go to sleep and the first one to wake up, on watch every day, for our children. We ain't got time to be out here playing around. Not in this space. We could be competitive in a lot of other different spaces, but not in this space. You want to be competitive? Let's go play ball. Let's bowl. Let's play football. Let's play Xbox. Let's play some things that we can be competitive in, but not in the game of uplifting our people. There's no room for competition in this space.
Ooh, man, I'm gonna tell you, fellas, I hope y'all paid attention to what he was saying. Again, there's room for competition in some spaces, but then there are other spaces, and this is one of them. You're talking about fatherhood, you're talking about family, you're talking about legacy, you're talking about the well-being of a people, groups of people. There's no room for competition there. We have to be collaborative. We have to find ways to leverage each other's gifts, talent, skills, and utilize those to the best of the ability. One of the things I learned years ago, working on my degree in economics, was this concept of comparative advantage, right? And so when you think about comparative advantage, the concept is you do what you do most efficiently, then you trade for the other goods. That's what it's all about. You do what you do most efficiently, then you trade for the other goods. And so to that point, a prime example, if you have land and you can grow apples and oranges and all of that on your acre of land, but on that acre you can grow 1,000,000 pounds of apples, but only 100 pounds of oranges, it makes sense for you to grow apples on yours and you trade with the brother who's efficient in growing oranges. So therefore, we all do our thing and we do what we're gifted at doing, and then it helps everybody. That's the whole concept of trade. So do what you do most efficiently, trade for the other goods. Yeah, and go ahead.
Your gifts makes room for your prosperity.
Oh, Lord.
Like, stay focused on your gift. What's your gift? Don't, Patrick Madison, which is somebody else you got to have on. That's my man, 50 grand. Mm-hmm. And him and I, we talk all the time. And one of the things that we always kind of, not laugh about, but we say, to each other is sometimes we make this look easy. And what happens is people see what you do on Facebook and they think that's what you do. Like, for me, Facebook is just a chronological log of my highlights of what I accomplished in both family and business. Right? And it allows me to go back at the end of the year and look at my Facebook page, and I can tell you how many places I've spoken, how many places I've went to, how many places I've done this, how many websites I've done, how many webinars I've done, how many times I've spoken on whatever. If you watch my posts, I'm speaking about events, right? And then I go back and chronicleize all of that. And at the end of the year, I could say I spoke 55 times this year. I went to 25 states. I did this and blah, blah, blah. I took my family to this. I could tell you all of those things. But what they don't see, Mike, is you and I up at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out editing this show, right? They don't see you. They don't see you up at 2 a.m. in the morning trying to figure out who your next 3 guests and what questions you're gonna ask them. They don't see the 15 emails you keep trading back with somebody time to get them on, right? They don't see you doing all of that, and they don't see you have to break off and then have to go take care of family and then have to take care of something that's going wrong in the house and go out and into the world of COVID-19 and put your mask on. We ain't posting that stuff because ain't no glory in that. Nobody wants to see me sitting at the airport for 3 hours after my flight has been delayed, right? Me just sitting there. Nobody wants to see me get in my car and go to the office and pick up my mail. Nobody wants to see me sitting at my desk writing a grant that's due tomorrow afternoon at noon, and it's 150 pages. Nobody sees all of that stuff. They just see when the check comes. They see when we finally get to the product. They see when they see when the package rolls up to the door. They see when I'm handing off a charitable good to somebody. That's the highlights of what we're doing, because all of that stuff is attached to how the other system monitors how well we're doing, right? That outcome and output, right? So there's a system that demands that we tell them how much you did, and we got to respond to that. But the real work is in all of the other stuff that we do to make that stuff look easy. And so if you're not doing what you love, you'll never achieve all you need.
Man, I'm going to tell you, as you were talking, my mind was racing, thinking about the concept of what you do versus who you are. Because to your point, even the notion of communication or speaking or doing podcasts or doing interviews, or somebody asks you to come on a platform, and I don't have to rehearse because, again, that's who I am, right? And so it comes off as easy to some, and they have to spend hours rehearsing and this and that. But for me, again, when you understand your gifting, you understand your greatness, and you walk in that, it's not something that you rehearse, but it's not what I do, it's who I am. It's funny, like friends of mine who will listen to episodes or listen to interviews. The funniest thing to me, but to me is a testament that really backs that up, is when they hear an interview or they hear a speech or they hear something, they'll say like, "Man, Mike, that sounds just like you." But I'm like, well, but they're saying, like, when we have conversations on the phone, how they hear me interview or how they hear us talk or how they hear us do something is literally like a conversation that we have just shooting the stuff, watching the game or something, obviously during social distancing, we're before that time frame, but, but to that point, it's not necessarily what we do, it's who we are. And it goes to what you're saying. if you find something that you love, you find something that really pricks your spirit, that God has laid inside of you to go and do, and you realize that you also have some gifting in that department, and you walk into it, sometimes it does appear easy, but that's not what you do. That's who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nah, and you build on those things. You build on those talents. Obviously, you got to have at least one of those gifts, right? Got to be able to keep your lights on, right? So,
absolutely.
That's the one you focus on first. You focus on, making sure you get that taken care of. Once that is taken care of and it's moving, listen, I had the best compliment given to me. It's probably been about 3 or 4 days ago now. Speaking to a gentleman who's serving as my mentor right now, in a space of legacy building, because that's one of the places I'm looking at right now. Like, if something happens to me today, what happens to my family? Like, all of this stuff that you and I are doing, is this stuff really going to take care of my legacy when I'm gone? And I got to be able to start really thinking about that. And he said to me, this is somebody who does international work at high levels, multiple millionaire over and over again, right? Working with guys in that space around the country. He said, man, the thing that I really admire the most about you is that you're Kenny Braswell no matter where you show up. He says, I've seen you in meetings. I've seen you just hanging around laughing and joking. I've heard you on phones. I've seen you. He says, and no matter where I hear you speak, Kenny Braswell is always there. You're never you don't code switch in a way that you have to be someone else to be in a particular place. And I had never given that any thought before. And he's like, and that lends to your comfortability in a space. Like, when you and I, to yourself, to your point, like when you come in the door and you just who you are, you ain't got to put no fronts on for nobody. Either you love me the way I am, or listen, there's 2 things you ain't never gonna be able to change. That is time and change. Time's gonna come, time's gonna go, and change gonna happen. So if I can like you today and not like you tomorrow, as far as I'm concerned, that's about time and change, right? That time has passed and that change has come. There's been Sam Cooke wrote a whole song about that. Right? Change gonna come, right? And then Morris Day and the Time did a whole thing about time, right? So we know both of those things gonna flow. And so you gotta find comfort in yourself. If you can't, I used to tell my son all the time, when my daughter, who always used to say, I'm bored. And one day she said it to me, and I said, you know what? I said, let me tell you something. I said, if you can't have enough patience to spend time with yourself, you ain't gonna never be able to spend time with anybody else.
Ooh, man. Dude, I'm gonna tell you. Dude, I'm gonna tell you, it's so literally right on time, because we're recording this still in the midst of the stay-at-home orders and all of that with the corona crisis, and I have a 6 and an 8-year-old. And routinely we get the I'm bored. And my response, or my wife's response to our kids, only boring people get bored.
I like that one.
That's right.
I'm going to use that one a couple of times. I have quote you the first couple of times. After it's mine.
That's it. You can have it, man. You can have it. Only boring people get bored. And that changes the game, because I think back to, even with all the things they have at their disposal, at times they still get bored. And then I think back, what if this was 30 years ago? Where literally you may have had a Nintendo, you probably didn't have cable television. Your mama would have said, get outside, and she'll put a pitcher of Kool-Aid on the back porch. And and the only time you were coming in is if you had to do number 2. See, you said number 2, number 1, you stay outside. But that was it, right? And so you figure things out. But the whole concept of only boring people get bored, and because there's always something to do.
What they say, imagination is the mother of invention.
Ooh, man, that was our necessities. The necessity breeds innovation, or imagination.
Yeah,
you can find.
So if I'm just giving you something all the time to heighten your, eliminate your boredom. How are you using your own imagination to do it on your own? How am I teaching you to use your imagination if I give you everything you need to occupy your time.
Oh, man. I mean, even saying that in itself, I mean, I think about the concept of parenting in the 21st century, and that is one of the conundrums we face, right? So think about this. When you used to hang out with your boys back in the day and y'all would sit around and, you know, telling lies about high school or whatever, how many points you scored in junior varsity and how many yards you rushed for and all of that, you know, everybody would throw their little stuff out. Oh, man, I had 4 touchdowns against so-and-so and I had 40 points against this one. And you would debate back and forth. But the funny thing was at the time, because we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have stats and all that stuff still listed, there was no way to go back and validate, right? So you just had to banter back and forth, and ultimately you really never came to a concrete conclusion, but it allowed you to, you know, play with your imagination, work on your argument, you know, to your debating skills. But then ultimately you kind of left with I had to have an imagination about it because we really can't validate. Whereas now you don't have that option. If you say like, man, you know, I did something 15 years ago, everybody can pull their phone up and say like, no, you didn't. So the whole concept of creativity, to your point, is like, that is a challenge as far as parenting is concerned. It's like, how do you infuse scenarios, almost create boredom so that creativity has to start to come out? Otherwise, everything's at the fingertips.
Right. You know, and I know I don't even know if we on course or off course.
Man, we're good. This is us.
Good.
Yes,
I'm saying this is the face of fatherhood because I'm only talking through my own lens, right?
Uh-huh.
And so with my son, you know, my thing with him is, so he's growing up very differently than my other 4 kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have 5 kids. I have 4 girls, 1 son. My son is 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
My son is the only child who can say out of my 5 children that I have woken up every day of my life with my father in the house.
Ooh.
Right? And so, and he happened to come along when God chose to give me and my wife a surprise blessing.
Mm.
Right? But when I got that surprise blessing, we were established, right? We weren't where I was when I was growing up in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. Right? It wasn't struggling. So my other kids had to see a different daddy, right? They were exposed to a different lifestyle because me and their moms weren't together. So they see me in a very different way. But this cat right here was able to come in when I was on the come up. Right? In a lot of different ways, being more self-aware, being more conscious about, you know, legacy, being more conscious about business development and all those kinds of things. And so he hasn't had the same struggles that my other children have had, which sometimes I think, you know, the saints would call them spoiled, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I had to come to this realization, you know, Black folks are the only people who believe that we can't spoil our kids.
Wow.
Like, why is it wrong for my kid not to have a want? Right? He shouldn't have a want. Now, he's got to get those other things. He's got to get appreciation for the things he's given, understanding, you know, that what they say, money don't grow on trees, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? He has to have a full awareness that work is the primary principle before playing, right? He understands work hard, play hard. He understands all those things. He understands that education is the #1 importance in our household, to which he is a straight A student. He's a gifted student. He understands the importance of socialization, and so and being in shape. He was a black belt at 8 years old. The kid is going to be a beast on the basketball court, you know, when he gets and breaks away from PS4, right? And so, and he's what I have described as a low maintenance kid, right? He's easy to parent. And we know as parents, not all your children are low maintenance. You
Absolutely.
got high maintenance, you got some low, and you got them all in the middle. And so there was this time where I used to feel guilty with him around my other children because I felt like I didn't give them what I gave him until I realized that I wasn't the same person with them than I am with him. And we all evolve. The challenge is understanding what evolution means and evolutioning earlier than later. But that's a legacy transfer responsibility. My responsibility, white folks understand this, the transfer of wealth, right, to generation is to lessen the amount of struggle the next generation has to go through in their family. So they get to start sooner, right? They come out the gate not having to worry about shoes, not have to worry about books, not have to worry about, they come out the gate, learn how to speak Spanish in pre-K, they come out the gate doing calculus in 5th grade, they come out the gate doing all, they come out the gate not worrying about their community environment, they come out the gate not worrying about all those other things. But that's what transferable wealth is about, giving your children the ability and the head start to be able to get into their comfort zone so that they play their role in that transformation of legacy so that their children's children. So when we look at, not to bring him up, but he's a great example, right? When we look at 45 is not spending his money. Everybody wants to look at 45's wealth. 45 is not spending his money. 45 is spending his great-grandfather's money. The money that 45 is making is not even for him. The money that he's making today is for his children's children. Right? He understands that. So we're so narrow focused sometimes, and it's one of those things that particularly we have to talk more to our dads about, particularly our Black dads, that the thing that breaks, the thing that is the most impactful that breaks when you're not in the life of your child is the string of legacy, not the stream of income.
Legacy, not income. Explain a little bit.
So legacy is that I am teaching my son now what it means to own your own home, what it means to have great credit, what it means to be a stellar athlete, but a high level and high functioning and performing academician, right? To have principles, to have morals and all of those things. And those things ain't got nothing to do with income. I could be broke as a joke and still do those things.
Absolutely.
But in my mentality, I believe that I got to have money in order to instill values and principles, right? And we get caught up in that because that's what the system demands of us. The system says that our money is worth more to our children than our presence.
Man, I'm going to tell you that the whole concept of principles, value, and legacy over simple resources, because to me, I look at it from the standpoint of the legacy and the principles and the values are like income producing assets. Like that's the way I look at it, because when I think about it, a lot of times we think about just leaving money to your kids or leaving a pile of money or leaving a whatever. But the reality, and this is something I've come to realize actually very recently, what I need to leave my kids are income producing assets. And so I'm not trying to leave them just money, but income producing assets. And so those value propositions ultimately are income producing assets. How you think, how you operate, how you spend your money, becoming a high level performer, building your network, because your network is your net worth, right? Yeah. Understanding, how money flows, understanding how to identify your greatness, your gifts, your talents, your skills, but then also how to leverage those into being able to do something day in and day out that gives you joy, but then also provides value out into the world. Like those are all, in my opinion, not just tangible, but intangible income producing assets that go into that concept of legacy that get passed down. But to your point, I think we have not started, a lot of us did not start with those principles. We've had to learn those in the last decade or two. Right. And you know why? It is one of the principles that we have in Fathers Incorporated, particularly in our curriculums, right? And so when we do our curriculums, most fatherhood agencies want to jump right into fatherhood curriculum. They want to start talking to fathers about how to change diapers, how to, those things. Now, those things are critical and important. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of times you're teaching fathers fatherhood skills
who do not have any life skills.
Mm.
And so in our program, you can't take a fatherhood curriculum in our program unless you take our life skill curriculum. Because I can't demand you to be responsible if you've never been taught to be responsible. I can't expect for you to act right when no one's ever talked to you about the importance of integrity. Right? I can't help you think beyond your block if no one has ever talked to you about vision. Right? You're never going to seek deep inside of yourself for your true worth if no one has ever told you about purpose. Right? You're not going to know why you're so jittery about this particular thing all the time, and you can't stop talking about it, and you can't get it off your mind. And at a certain point, you think it's a distraction if no one has ever talked to you about passion. Right? And then if everybody in your life and everything that you believe owes you something in life has never shown up when you needed it the most, then you then stop believing in this thing called commitment. Therefore, you believe that commitment is not a necessity of life, right? And then if you don't have a belief in something bigger than you that says that someone else is in charge of all of this, and it's not just by happenstance that the sun comes up in the morning and the moon comes up at night, and the stars shine and they're bright, and the ozone protects the atmosphere, and the trees come up, and there's 4 seasons and all. You think that just happens? So if you don't understand that there's something beyond you, then what do you have faith in? If you don't have faith in anything, what are you hopeful for? And a man without hope will do anything.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you, you're speaking so to my heart, because I'm such a firm believer that, like, when we did the intro and we started this interview, I said, my name is Mike Dorsey, Mr. Double Down on You, right? And Double Down on You is my personal development platform. And so in essence, Double Down on You is a moniker in which I help people develop the courage and the confidence to double down on who they authentically are. And the whole concept behind that is embrace your greatness while pursuing your interest, recognizing your faults and failures, but then guarding yourself against your personal triggers. GIFT. It's all about unwrapping your gift. Right. Wow. And once you unwrap your gift, you then get to the point of being capable, but then under control. Right. So the concept of ultimately getting to the point in which I'm capable, yet under control. And when I think about an analogy, I think about like a lioness who's carrying a cub. Right. So that lioness is capable of ripping your arm off. Right. But yet she's also under control enough to be able to carry this cub in her mouth. You see what I'm saying? So that's the whole goal of getting to this. But once you double down on who you authentically are, then there's a rapper named YG. He always says, stay dangerous, right? So it's the whole concept. I mean, again, it's just using analogies and references. And but that in essence is what I'm talking about, right? Staying dangerous is like, look, I'm capable now, right? But I'm controlled. That means I'm disciplined. It's like the big muscle bound dude, but yet he's holding his baby. Yeah, he can go and do some bad stuff if he wants to, but yet he's holding that baby. He's capable yet under control. But you get that when you have the courage and the confidence to just let go and double down on who you are authentically and walk in that. And so you were speaking to my heart when you were saying that, because I'm a firm believer of that. You must authentically know who you are first. How can I ask you to be a dad if you don't know who you are as a man?
Right. And so you gotta take a step back. Unfortunately, you got to step back for us, right? And you just can't assume that we have all the tools we need to be the greatness that we know we can be, right? And so you got to have some leeway with us. Like I was one of those cats where I was just like, I was hot and hard on us, particularly black men. I wouldn't let a dude get by with nothing. I'd be like, nah, that's an excuse. I said, you're making an excuse. And then I was like, one day I had this epiphany, Mike, and I was like, there is a difference between a reason and an excuse.
Ooh, go into that. That is powerful.
Right. So an excuse is my ability to be able to give you an answer to not do something I was supposed to do, right? It's meant to push you off. An excuse is meant to push you off.
Mm.
A reason is meant to pull you in with empathy, right? Give you an example. A couple of years ago, I had an employee here in Atlanta, used to come to work and was like 12 to 15 minutes late every day. And every day he would say that, yo, boss, the traffic. And one day I said, that's an excuse, not a reason. He was like, what do you mean? I said, because you have come to believe that as long as you tell me it's traffic, I won't press you on what it really is. A reason is my car broke down. A reason is I was in a car accident. A reason is, right, I was sick and I fell down the stairs. That's a reason for you to be late. Here's why. Because if you come to work 15 minutes late every day, if you left your house 15 minutes earlier every day, then every day you'd be on time.
Man, fellas, I hope y'all are paying attention. The difference between a reason and an excuse. And as you were talking about that example, my whole thing is I try to take stuff and I make it simple. Like Joe Madison says, you got to put it where the goats can get it, right?
Yeah, I love Joe Madison.
Yeah. He said, you got to put it where the goats can get it. And when you said reason versus excuse, I thought about internal versus external. Because when you think about a reason, the reason is internal, meaning I'm taking responsibility. It's internal. It's on me. An excuse is always external, meaning it has nothing to do with me. It's always something external.
Something else.
It's always yeah. So when you were saying, giving that analogy and you're telling the extent about showing up 15 minutes late every day, right. A reason would have been, again, something that I take a responsibility for, that I can control. An excuse is when I always push it off. It's always the traffic's fault. Oh, it's always Atlanta traffic. It's always 285. It's always 7585. It's all, it's always something. I went to Georgia Tech, so I'm very familiar with all Atlanta traffic. So it's
and so you gotta press people into those spaces. So when we do our life skill classes with our dads, we walk them through scenarios like that. Like, it's important to be consistent, right? And so we talk to them about consistency. We have an entire 2-hour module on consistency. And people would say, how can you take 2 hours to speak about consistency? I was like, I could do it in 4 hours, but 2 hours gives me enough time to kind of really help them understand what I'm talking about. I said, in a very quick analogy, consistency can be explained this way. The number one goal of anyone who walks into a bowling alley is what?
To bowl a strike.
Nope.
Hold on. That walks into a bowling alley.
Every person who walks into a bowling alley to bowl has one goal in mind. What is
it? Just off the top of my head, I would say that they walk in there with the intention to bowl. Their goal is to go and roll a ball down the lane. They want to bowl.
Nope. Let me stop.
What is it?
The number one goal of every individual who walks into a bowling alley to bowl is to bowl a 300.
Okay, gotcha. You're thinking the end goal. I'm thinking like in the moment, I want to bowl a strike. Gotcha.
You get the right shoes to bowl on it. When I walk into a bowling alley, I'm bowling. The only reason I'm here is because I want to bowl a 300. Right? The only reason I'm here is because I want to bowl in 300. You get the same amount of frames, the same amount of times to bowl the ball as everybody else who walks into a bowling alley, right? And whenever you think about the term consistency is always measured in volume, right? When you say somebody is consistent, it means they keep coming. It's volume, right? When the literal term consistency, or the definition of consistency, is not about volume, it's about substance, right? The person who bowls the 300 because they do the same thing the same way over and over and over and over again.
Wow.
Right? So for an entire game, they knocking down balls the same way for the entire game. That's consistency. If you think about it in volume, just because you throw the ball, I think it's 26 times. Just because you throw the ball 26 times don't mean you're going to get 300. So volume don't mean anything. Consistency is what matters. Here's the next thing I always hit them with. So you married. Mm-hmm. Which one you think is more important to your wife? The number of times you come home or the consistency of who you are when you come home?
Ooh, consistency for sure.
Absolutely. Because if you work in a job that you travel 50% of the time, right? Mm-hmm. You're doing what you have to do for your job. What she wants is who is Mike when he comes in the door, and is that man consistent with the man I married? Right? Wow. And so when you think about life, you have to get these brothers out of this thought that just because I see my kids every weekend, that's enough. Because what you think is that the amount of times you see your children measures who you are as a dad, when that has absolutely nothing to do with that, because there are kids who have their dads in their home every day and still feel like they have an absent father in their life.
Absolutely.
Kids don't care about the amount of times you show up. They care about the substance that you bring when you show up. Right? And dudes don't understand the difference with respect to those two things. And so, for 2 hours, I can talk to you about what I just talked to you about, and then walk out and understand that, man, it's not, my money is good. Paying my child support is good, but that's not what this fatherhood thing is all about. It's not about the amount of money I could put on the table. It's about the substance and the value that money holds in connection with the rest of who I am.
Ooh. It's the value, it's the consistency. And one of the things you were saying in regards to bowling, and, it's kind of back up a little bit because, one of the things that, I've been thinking about in regards to execution, right? Mm-hmm. So consistency is showing up time after time after time after time. But one of the things that I've personally been focusing on is really focusing on being present in the moment, right? And so that kind of led to my initial response when you mentioned what's your goal when you step into a bowling alley. My thoughts are to roll a strike, right? Because by me rolling a strike, I'm present in that specific moment. For me personally, if I'm so fixated on the 300 or bowling the perfect game, I might discard or I might overlook this one moment of me standing here focusing on rolling a strike. And so on a perfect level, and this, again, maybe can help some of the brothers listening and also help me to think about it a little bit differently. How do you suggest or how do you recommend the consistency of thinking about the future, thinking about the long term, but you are invested in staying present in that moment? Because I think a lot of us don't focus enough attention there. And what ends up happening is we're so focused on the 300 that we're not focused enough to roll the strike with the ball in our hand, standing right there at the lane.
Mm-hmm. So there's two things. One is, I am always a and person, not an or person.
Okay.
Right? An and says you got to do, an or person says you got to do this or that.
Absolutely.
An and person says you got to do this and that.
Absolutely.
Right? And so the answer is in, you both got to be focused on the goal and the process. Mm-hmm. You got to be focused on the goal and the process, because if the goal is 300, that's going to make me intentionally focus on my process every time I pick up the ball. Right? Every time I pick up the ball, because the ultimate desire for all of us is perfection. That's what 300 is about. That's why that 300 number is so key. The 300 isn't about the 300 or the goal. It's that 300 in a bowling game represent perfection. Right? And not everybody can be perfect. Not everyone as a human is perfect, but there are points in our lives where we can achieve perfection. In the pursuit of perfection, keeping your eye on the goal, but understanding your role in the process if you continue to stay focused on the goal in the pursuit of perfection, you will establish an excellency in everything that you do.
Ooh, I like.
Do your best at every process. You put your meaning that every time you step in, you put your fingers into that ball, that you are trying to throw that ball with excellence down there, even if you throw it the first time and only knock down 9. Doesn't mean that you're perfect. You might walk out of the bowling alley with 299 that day. But if you would have given up after you hit the 9 on the first time, you probably would have walked out of there with a 68. It's the difference. It doesn't matter what you bowl and knock down per frame. It matters that each time you stand up with that ball in your hand, I didn't get it perfect last time, but I'm still striving for perfection, because I know that getting to perfection is in the process and the excellence in my process.
Yo, fellas, this concludes part 1 of my discussion with my friend Kenneth Braswell. Make sure to tune in to part 2 for the conclusion of our conversation. All right, y'all. Holla back. Yo, fellas, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And always visit blackfathersnow.com, as well as follow Black Fathers Now on virtually every social media platform you can think of. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Just follow us and engage with us, man. Look forward to hearing from you. And I guess until next time, I'll holler at you. Peace.